Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the session 2 on leadership principles. And Mrs. Gabi, thank you for coming back again to speak on leadership principles from the historical figure. And thank you.
Thank you for having me back.
So may you please continue to talk to the audience on the leadership principles and qualities.
In today's second part of leadership principles, I want to look at the historical figure of Nehemiah. He was part of Jewish history. There was a time when the Jewish people, they had kings, King Saul, King David, King Solomon, and after that, other kings came in and they took the Jewish people captive. And there was the king of Babylon who took some of the Jews and brought them all to Babylon. And at this time we find the story of Nehemiah. He grew up in Babylon and he was chosen for some reason to work in the king's palace. He was working very closely with the king. He was serving his food and drink, and he had daily access to the king, also protecting him, making sure nobody was trying to poison this mighty king. So how then did Nehemiah rise to become a leader? Well, he was a slave, wasn't he? Well, his story starts with a very important leadership principle. Nehemiah heard that his home country of Israel was in big trouble and that the walls of the capital Jerusalem were lying in ruins. This fact deeply, deeply moved Nehemiah, and it is written down and saying that he wept and he was crying. He was so moved in his heart about the condition of his homeland. And actually, this is an important leadership principle. A good leader shows compassion. A good leader is moved by things in this world that should not be. I want to give 2 examples from history. First is William Wilberforce, an Englishman in the 18th century. At that time, there was a slave trade going on in the British Empire. He was moved by this great, terrible thing that happened in the kingdom. And he said, this cannot be. All people are equal. And his compassion and concern catapulted him up to be a great leader in the English parliamentary system, and he fought to abolish slavery for 30 years. Compassion often can be the trigger point for somebody to rise up and become a leader. Another example I want to share is Martin Luther King in the USA. He was moved by the mistreatment of millions of Black Americans. He rose up because he felt compassion and he knew that this was not right. And a good leader needs to have a soft heart and be moved by things that are not right. A second principle I want to draw from the story of Nehemiah is that a good leader needs to plan. Not to rush into projects and big things, but he needs to stop and think and make plans. In the case of Nehemiah, the walls of Jerusalem, they had been down for 141 years, a long, long time. But when Nehemiah heard of this, he took 4 months to think, to plan. He also prayed to God and asked for wisdom on what to do. In the end, Nehemiah then made plans to go back and rebuild the walls. He did that. That project only took him 52 days, but he took 4 months to really think about this, to make plans, to ask the king to give him letters of permission, to give him building materials. He really thought long and hard. He made really good plans. So a good leader is also a strategist, a thinker, and he does not rush into big projects. The third principle we can learn from Nehemiah today is that he had courage. Every good leader needs courage to step out and do something. Now, Nehemiah was probably quite comfortable working side by side with the king. He had a place to sleep, to eat, he had work. He was comfortable with his life. But then he did a very courageous thing. He knew he needed the king's permission to leave Babylon and to go back to Jerusalem. He took the courage to ask the king for permission to leave. And not only that, he asked the king to please give him letters so that he could travel safely. He asked the king to please give him building materials to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. That was very courageous. He asked the king of a huge kingdom. The king had power. The king could have ordered to just let Nehemiah be killed. The king can do what he wants, but Nehemiah showed great courage. And today, leaders need to be courageous. Not everything they plan is looked upon with favor by everyone. They also face opposition. And there is a saying, no pain, no gain, but also no risk, no reward. And a good leader knows that, and he takes courage to take action. The fourth principle I want to share with you is that a good leader has patience. A good leader doesn't need to do everything immediately. He doesn't need to put every great idea into practice straight away. Nehemiah didn't. He arrived in Jerusalem. He could have started his work straight away, but he did not. He took some time to walk in the city at night. He acted a little bit like a spy. He wanted to get to know the situation. He wanted to know where he was. He wanted to know whom he could trust. So he took some time to figure out what is the situation, who can I work with, how can I do it, when should I do it. And I think a good leader takes time. He has patience. And then often a project is much more successful when the leader can take some time at the beginning to show patience. Another point I want to also share is that a good leader expects opposition. Nehemiah went to rebuild this wall, and right away there were people coming against him, conspiring against him, making plans to bring him down. They did not like his project. And it is the same all over the world today. A leader needs to be prepared that opposition will come. Not everybody will like what you do. You need to be prepared and get yourself ready internally to face that opposition and keep going anyway. The fifth and final leadership principle we can learn from this character Nehemiah is that a leader needs to step up and make things happen. A leader is somebody who takes action. Now, I told you about the story of Nehemiah, that he was rebuilding a city wall in 52 days. Of course, he could not do that by himself. He needed the help of lots of other Israelites. But Nehemiah also was working on that wall. He also rolled up his sleeves. He got his hands dirty. And we can learn from that a good leader does not expect just everyone else to work. A good leader will also join in the work, and that usually makes him respected by the people that he wants to lead, that he also gets in there, gets his hand dirty. Sometimes when there's a group of people, a lot of people want to stay in the background, but there needs to be one person that takes control, that does the leading, that steps it up and takes action. And that person often you will find is the leader from that group. So yes, a leader needs to actually make sure things get done, take action, and also join in the action himself.
Mrs. Gabi, I want to thank you, especially sharing the principles from the life of Nehemiah. Those points were great, and if we are to become a good leader, I think we need to become a compassionate, and that's a very important element. I have certain more questions to you, as this is a discussion panel, and I want to ask. And viewers, I also want you to tell that if you have not seen the previous part of what Mrs. Gabi has spoken regarding the principles and the qualities of a leadership, you can just see. I would be linking the YouTube channel below, and you can click and see, and those points were great, and you can become a good leader in your own societies or organizations wherever you're working. But coming back to discussion sessions, I want to ask a couple of questions to you. I think the viewers also can be benefited with those questions. I want to ask regarding the first questions, that is that what do you say to upcoming leaders how to become a better planner to become a good leader in their own generation?
Well, I think it's always good to set yourself goals that are reachable, goals that are measurable, not just goals out there, clouds in the sky, very woolly, but no, set yourself a goal. It needs to have a time frame, it needs to be specific. You need to be able to measure whether you've reached the goal or not. So why not start with that? Set yourself a weekly goal. Train yourself to have a goal and reach it and be focused.
Oh, that's wonderful. Basically, focus on what you want to become and set the goal and plan accordingly what you want to become.
Yes, sure, why not? It can start with very basic things, like if you want to get more fit physically, then set yourselves a goal, doing sports, running. It can start with things like that, but then also you can set yourselves goals that will help you in your leadership, be more focused. Yeah, about hard work as well. You can use that for every area.
Wonderful. And I have another questions to you, is that there are leaders who is courage to stand up for the truth, but sometimes it is quite difficult, to stand up for the truth, because in certain cultures you have, especially in India, you have shame and honor cultures, and if you speak of the truth, certain truth or certain lies, then you bring a shame on you. How would you overcome as a leader to speak up that truth?
Well, a spontaneous thought I have is go and find one or two other people that have the same conviction, that want to stand for the same thing and stand up for it together. So you do not have to face it alone. Two or three are always stronger than when you are on your own. So get yourself some support. Find people that also believe in the same thing and that are convinced that this is the truth and this is what needs to be done.
So we need to find out a couple of people who agreed with me, and this is the truth, and we go along together.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Mrs. Gabi has introduced and talked to us a lot on leadership principles and qualities. And it was incredible. And I personally enjoyed, and I do hope the audience enjoyed too. And I want to especially thank to Mrs. Gabi for speaking, and I look forward in the future that you would also contribute something better to the audience. And thank you once again.
Well, you're very welcome. I love sharing what I have learned, and I hope that many of the viewers will put these principles into action to help make India a better place.
Yes, definitely. I do believe that if you're in a leadership positions and somewhere in the organizations or in the institutions or any places that you're holding a leadership, I think those principles, if you can apply them, that would be greatly encouraged, and you can contribute something for your own society, and you will become an extraordinary leader in your own lifetime. Thank you, and see you in the future.